friends, I'm Yakuta Karkhanawala. Today we are going to see the topic nesting of loops. In the last video we have seen loops, that is while loop, do while loop and for loop. Now today we are going to see how to nest all these loops together. So what is nesting? Nesting means a loop within another loop is known as nesting. What do you understand by loop within another loop? Let's understand this with the syntax. We have here one for loop. This particular for loop has three things: initialization, condition and update part. Now inside this particular for loop, we are having another for loop. This is for loop 2. It also has its own initialization, condition and update. This is known as my inner loop and this one is known as my outer loop. It means one loop inside in another. That is, there is an inner loop within an outer loop is known as nesting of loop. So whenever we are using loops, the total number of iterations or steps that would be carried out would be equal to the number of steps or iterations of the outer loop multiplied by number of steps or the iterations of the inner loop. Suppose the outer loop is executed for 3 times and the inner loop is executed for 2 times. So this total complete nesting of loop will be executed for 3 into 2, that is 6 times it would be executed and you will get the out. Now let's understand the execution of outer loop using a flowchart. First is the condition of the outer loop is being executed, that is condition 1. This is a condition of your outer loop. If this condition is true, then your compiler will come to the inner loop. It would initialize the loop variable and then check for the condition of the inner loop, that is your condition 2. If condition 2 is true, then the body of the inner loop is executed. After the execution of the body of the inner loop, update the loop variable of inner loop. So this complete part, condition 2, body of the loop and increment decrement is completely of inner loop. This will be executed again and again. After incrementing and decrementing, the loop variable will come and check the condition 2, the condition of the inner loop itself. If it is true, then the body and increment part is executed. But if any time it is false, if the condition of the inner loop is false, then we'll come to the outer loop update part where we'll increment and or decrement the loop variable of outer loop and then again go and check for the condition of outer loop, that is condition 1. If condition 1 is true, then the inner loop is executed all over again. Do the initialization of the inner loop, then check for the condition and execute the body of the inner loop. Anytime if the condition 1 is false, that is condition of the outer loop becomes false, then we'll exit the loop, that is the end of the loop will happen. So you can see here in nesting of loops, there are two conditions. One condition is of outer loop and another condition of inner loop. The inner loop gets executed again and again until it becomes false. Anytime the condition of inner loop is false, the outer loop update part and a new condition of outer loop is executed. Let's understand pattern programs using nesting of loops. Without nesting of loops, patterns display is not possible. Let's see, I want to display a pattern where in the first line I have 1 star, in the second line I have 2 star and in the third line I have 3 star. So if you want to display this type of patterns onto the screen, then we have to compulsory go for nesting of loops. So let's understand what would be the logic and how we are going to use nesting of loops and then we'll see the program of this. So you can consider this particular pattern in terms of matrix where you have rows and column. You can see here in row 1 we are going to display 1 star. This particular cell means the row is 1 and the column is 1 here. When we'll come to the second row, this is my second row. So when we come to the second row, then the 1 star is printed in column 1 and the second star is printed in column 2. It means the cell is 2 for row and 1 for column. So 2, 1 and 2, 2 is the cell name. Similarly, if you come to the row 3, how many stars we want to display? 3 stars. So 3 stars are displayed as you can see in the matrix and the cell name is 3 1, 3 2, 3 3. Now here you can see that at every row my stars are printed, but my columns are not printed on every row. In the first column only one star is printed, in the second column 2 stars is printed, in the third column 3 stars is printed. As you can see here that there are 3 rows in my particular pattern, and the column counts depends upon the row number. If row number is 1, then the column is also 1, means only at one column the star is printed. If row number is 2, then my star is printed in 1 and maximum of 2. It does not go beyond 2, second column. And if my row number is 3, then my last column is 3. The star is printed in the first column, second column and the third column. Again, it does not go beyond the third column to print the star. So if row is 1, then number of columns is 1. If row is 2, then number of columns are 2, and so on. Here we'll take, in this case, we'll take 2 for loops, one for the row and another for the column. And we'll write down the program to print this particular pattern. So I am taking 2 for loop, one for loop inside and another for loop. The first for loop, outer for loop, for that my loop variable is I. Outer loop is for rows. So row number starts from 1. How many rows I want is 3. So I is less than equal to 3 is my condition, and I plus plus is my update, because after every row 1 I want to go to the second row, so it would be incremented by 1. Inside the outer loop, I have another for loop, because in every row I want to display star in different number of columns. So for columns I have taken another loop, inner loop. In this particular for loop, my loop variable is j. You can take any loop variable name as per your convenience. Here also my column number starts with 1, but here see the condition. The condition is j less than is equal to I, means the column value should be either less than the row value or it should be equal to the row value. It should not exceed the row value. My column number depends on the row number. If the condition is satisfied, if the column value is less than the row value, if it is satisfied, then star would be printed. If this condition is false, then it will come out of the inner loop, execute the statements of the outer loop. This is my statement of my outer loop, that is printf slash n. It means a new line is added, and then again my compiler goes to check for the new conditions of my outer. Let's understand how the execution of these two for loops, outer and inner loop, is been done from this particular table. See, I have the headings of my table as I, the condition of the outer loop, then the value of j, the condition of the inner loop, and what would be displayed onto the screen. So first, initially the value of I is equal to 1 because of this initialization. Then my compiler will come and check for the condition. So condition would be 1 less than is equal to 3. This means it is true. So if it is true, it will come to the inner loop, and inner loop the value of j will be equal to 1. It would be initialized to 1. Then check the condition. Condition is j less than equal to I. So the value of j is 1 and the value of I is also 1. So 1 less than equal to 1, which is true. So if the condition is true, star will be printed onto the screen. My next iteration, the inner loop update part is being executed. So the j value would be updated, which becomes 2. And it checks for the condition. The condition now would become 2 less than is equal to 1, which is false. Since it is false, it will exit the inner loop and execute the statement of the outer loop. What is my statement of the outer loop? Printf slash n. So new line would be incorporated in your output. Your cursor will go to the new line. Whenever the outer loop, this slash n is executed, your compiler will go and go to the update part of the outer loop. So in that case, the value of I would be incremented. So I would now become equal to 2. So the condition becomes 2 less than is equal to 3, which is true. And since the condition of outer loop is true, again the inner loop is executed all over again. Now my j value would be again initialized to 1 because j is equal to 1. Then j less than equal to I. This time the value of j is 1 and the value of I is equal to 2. So the condition becomes 1 less than is equal to 2, which is true. So star is printed onto the screen. Now again j is incremented by 2. The inner loop is continuously executed. So j becomes 2. Condition is 2 less than is equal to 2 or true, and star is printed. So you can see here when I is equal to 2, that is when we are in the second row, how many stars are printed? total 2 stars are printed. Again, if we'll increment the value of j, it becomes tree. Okay, now when the value of j would be again incremented now, so that is j a becomes equal to 3. The condition is 3 less than is equal to 2, which is false. So in that case, printf/n would be executed and a new line would be added onto the screen. After this, again the compiler goes to the outer loop and update the value of I. So I now becomes 3. 3 less than is equal to 3 means we are coming to the third line. It is true. J, the inner loop will be executed all over again. So J is initialized to 1. 1 less than is equal to 3. The value of J is 1 and the value of I is 3. So the condition becomes 1 less than is equal to 3, which is true. So star is printed. Then increment the value of J. So now it becomes 2 less than equal to 3. Again this condition is true. The second star is printed. Then increment the value of j for the third time. So now the condition becomes 3 less than equal to 3. Condition is true. So star is again printed. Now for the last moment when the j would be incremented and it becomes to 4. That is 4 less than is equal to 3 is false. So the outer for loop statement is executed, that is printf/n would be executed and the new line would be added onto the screen. Again now in this case the compiler will go and increment the value of I. So now I becomes 4. The condition now becomes 4 less than is equal to 3, which is false. So it exits the outer loop also. So the inner loop plus outer loop, all things is been completed by a compiler. So you can see from here that I means row. When row is equal to 1, only 1 star is printed. When row is equal to 2, 2 stars are printed. When row is equal to 3, 3 stars are printed onto the screen. There is no slash n here, so all the stars are printed in one common line. So this was all about pattern programming using nesting of loop. Let's see the complete program of this pattern using nesting of loop in Dev C++ editor. So this is my Dev C++. I'll create a new source file. First statement would be hash include to, since I'm going to use printf scan, so I'll include the header file, that is stdio.header file. Now my void main, the block of my main. Here I'm going to declare two variables, one I for row, j for column. Take a for loop, the outer for loop, the value of I is equal to 1. The condition is I want 3 lines, so I'll write I less than is equal to 3. End it with semicolon and the update is I plus plus. So this is my outer for loop. Now we'll take an inner for loop for column. The column loop variable is j, which is initially equal to 1. Now my condition here would be the value of column would depends on the row. So j less than equal to I would be my condition, and then in update part mention j plus plus because I want to update column by 1. Now whenever the condition is been true, I want to display star on my screen with a space. End it with semicolon. This is my inner loop. After my inner loop, what I want to do is I want to incorporate new line. So write down printf/n, because when you move from one row to another, you want to that each row should be printed on new line. So write down printf/n. So this is my complete program of pattern program for printing star. Now next is save your file. Say pattern1. It should be a C file with .c extension. Save it. Now compile your program. Okay, there is an error here. Instead of void, you write down integer. Execute. Compile your program. There are no errors, no warnings. Run your program. So you can see the output of my program is star, 1 star on the first row, second star on the second row, and 3 stars on the third row. If I want to increase the number of row, then what I'll do is instead of 3, I'll keep it 6. I want 6 rows. Again compile your program. no errors, no warning, and run the program. So this time I'm having 6 rows. And you can see in the last is I have 6 column also. Still, if you want, you can make this program more generalized. What I'm doing is for new line, number of lines, I'm taking a variable n. I'll take the value of n from the user. So enter value of n slash n and then scan. Take the value of n from the user, comma, ampersand n. N means the number of lines I want in my particular program pattern. So instead of 6, what you can do is you can write down here n. So whatever value of n you will enter on the prompt, that many lines of your star would be displayed onto the screen. Save your program, compile it and run it. So now see, you can see here, enter the value of n. Now suppose if I write n is equal to 10, I've entered the value 10 for n, means how many lines of my pattern would be displayed? 10 lines. Again, if you run the program, but this time if you give the value of n is equal to 50, so total 15 lines of your pattern would be displayed onto the screen. So this is a more generalized approach of pattern programming. Today we have seen nesting of loops and we have seen how to use this nesting of loops in pattern programming. Thank you very much. Goodbye.